This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. With all of the things that I've covered in regards to the upcoming eclipse, we have to keep an eye on potential deception. And by deception, I mean the possibility that the government uses this eclipse to bring about Project Bluebeam. Now, there's a lot of gaslighting going on, and there's a lot of stories happening at once that really makes me concerned that Christians could be duped into some type of fake rapture event. Trending on Twitter, you have rapture trending, you have earthquake trending. Remember, everything that trends by design. They control what trends. If every single one of us, put out something about Bagelville or Blood Lib or something along those lines, and we got 50,000 people, 100,000 people, 200,000 people to tweet it out and put the hashtag, it would still not trend. They control what trends. Are there some things that they put in there organically, like the things you see on screen about pro wrestling? Yeah, they'll let those things trend because there's an event going on with wrestling and everybody's talking about it, so it seems like it's all organic. But they're making and allowing rapture and earthquake to trend at the same time. And remember, during the eclipse, everybody is going to be looking up. Everybody's not only going to be looking up, but a lot of people out there are going to be wearing these 3D glasses that they're told to go and get, or some type of specific glasses, and they're told not to look at the eclipse without these glasses on. Now, this might seem like a normal thing to you, but 100 years ago, people didn't have these types of glasses to view the eclipse when an eclipse type event occurred. And they've just started conditioning us over the last 15 to 20 years or so with wearing these, what we call 3D glasses during an eclipse. So think about that and what the 3D glasses could present to somebody looking at this, along with them using Project Bluebeam. Now, for those of you that don't know about Project Bluebeam, I'll get into it in a little bit deeper detail later in the video about what they could do with Project Bluebeam. But let's look at the things that we have to be fearful of. And I don't say fearful like you shouldn't sleep at night, because we're asked not to fear. But I am very concerned about Christians getting duped. That's why I continue to do this. I try to make sure, because Christians can get duped into a lot of these things where a lot of preachers talk about raptures, they talk about date setting, apocalypse, and a lot of these things never come to. But if they use something like Project Bluebeam to fake a rapture or an alien invasion, it'll be very easy to dupe Christians into something. And we see a lot of stuff trending with rapture. You see some of these pictures. Are you ready for the rapture? Jesus is coming on April 8th, 2024. I can almost guarantee you that Jesus is not coming on April 8th, 2024, because no man knoweth the day or the hour. But I will guarantee you that if they do create something in the sky, that many, many Christians will be duped into believing it. And of course, the Bible warns us about this in Matthew chapter 24, verse 24. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. So the very elect can even be deceived by something that the government manipulates. So in correlation with the eclipse happening, we have a lot of events that are making Christians think that the end times are happening right before our eyes. We have this cicada thing coming, right? If you haven't heard, there's supposed to be trillions of cicadas that are breeding and coming and swarming the earth. And they're telling you that this has never happened before. Some are saying it hasn't happened in 200 years, even though 5 years ago, there's articles out there, because I covered it then, about cicadas and about apocalyptic type events in regards to cicadas. Now, the Bible doesn't specifically say cicadas, but if you look 6, 7, 8 years ago, there were stories about billions of cicadas about to take over the Northeast, and we have the same story out there today. So if that correlating with the eclipse, and then you get the earthquake, you get the earthquakes on the East Coast, which make people think to themselves, wow, this is very different. We don't normally get them in New York. This could be God's warning. You get a lot of these Christian conservatives gaslighting the audience, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, talking about quakes and the eclipse being signs from God. So Christians are getting on board. Christians have become so frustrated with the world, which is understandable, that they want to get out of here. But again, I've told you my viewpoint on the rapture. I told you my viewpoint on us being put here during this time period. Of course, you have every right to disagree with my take on these things. These are just my take on these things. But I don't think that God put us here so that we could sit here, look up, and beg to leave. I feel like God put us here to endure. He put us here to have the endurance and the wisdom to spread knowledge to people. And of course, we have to be very, very, very vigilant, and we have to be very, very, very aware of how the enemy works. And we have to be as wise as serpent, as innocent as dove. So while those things are happening, we have an eclipse, we have all these weird things with CERN and NASA, we have the earthquake, we have the cicadas, then we also have the red heifer story that's out there circulating. We have to remember that all these stories only get out there and circulate if they want them out there circulating. So when the mainstream media covers the red heifer, it should make us question it. When they're telling us about cicadas, we should question it. Why? Would you know about these cicadas swarming the earth if they didn't tell you? No, you wouldn't, because I guarantee it probably isn't happening in your front yard. They'll just tell you that it's happening all around. And of course, we know they have the ability to make GMO cicadas, just like GMO mosquitoes, and release them on the public. So there's been a lot of rapture programming over the years that has really been ingrained in people's minds. And The Simpsons, as always, have rapture programming put in one of their episodes. Look.
Leave your body, Seymour.
He is risen production.
Where did my Christian limo driver go?
The baby I chose to have baptized is gone!
It's the rapture, Shauna. Virtuous have gone to heaven, and the rest of us have been left below. Because we rejected God, tacitly accepting Satan, we must suffer through the apocalypse.
Why did I put my faith in science and technology?
So The Simpsons talking about the rapture has also planted seeds in people's minds about the rapture from both sides, right? Non-believers and believers. And the government knows this because the government uses these shows to seed plant in people's minds. And we're at a time period now where Project Bluebeam has been around for a long period of time. The knowledge of it, the documentation from the government on Project Bluebeam, and they're going to use it at some point in time. So think about the things that could make us suddenly go, yeah. I could see it actually happening now because obviously throughout history, a lot of people have thought that there was going to be a Project Bluebeam event and it hasn't happened. But think about where we're at now. Think about where we're at with technology, with the division that's occurring, with the deception that's occurring, and of course, getting everybody at one period of time all to look to the sky, okay? We know that 24/7 on a day-to-day basis, the majority of zombies out there are never looking up. They even mock us with movies on Netflix about never looking up, right? Well, if everybody was looking up, they probably see the chemical baths and the geoengineering going on above us. So people don't often look up to the skies. They're actually looking down on their cellular devices. So the fact that they could have some type of man-made eclipse, which is what a lot of people believe that it is. Now, I can't say that for a fact, but I certainly think that something is up with the way that they're talking about the eclipse, with all of these stories that revolve around the Bible that seem to be getting fed to us about cicadas, using potential things to manipulate an eclipse with the artificial sun they keep talking about and blacking out the sun over the last year or so. They've been constantly talking about it, right? The cicadas, the earthquake, which they could easily start up, and the red heifer story. All these things correlating with these things trending make me think that some type of big deception could potentially be coming. Now, for those of you that don't know about Project Bluebeam, I'm going to play for you a clip I've used in the past that has helped people understand Project Bluebeam. The government would be creating a simulation in the sky. It could be a rapture-like event. It could be an alien-like event. It could be multiple things happening at once, but the government has the technology to do this, and we should all know that by now. We've seen some of the stuff even at theme parks that they do in the sky. So that's just at a theme park where they're openly showing you these things and the technology they have, the holograms, etc. Just imagine how much more advanced the government's capabilities are with creating holograms and creating images in the sky. It's a time period where with all of this conflict going on, all of this hatred being brewing, that many Christians are waving a white flag. Many Christians are begging for a rapture-like event to occur. They are begging to get out of here. So it'll be very easy to dupe them with something. Here are some clips, including Bill Cooper talking about Project Bluebeam for those of you that are not aware.
If enough people believe that something is real, then it is real in its effects.
In terms of social reality.
In terms of the social reality, in terms of what people act according to their beliefs.
Yeah.
And that opens the question of, really at two levels, perhaps something that we are creating ourselves, perhaps a series of images that we are projecting. I think Carl Jung came very close to expressing that idea in one of his books. Or could it be manipulated purposely by people who have the technology to simulate UFO sightings? And people say, well, of course not. Who would do a thing like that? Well, I would remind you that during the Watergate investigation, it was discovered that there was a plan originated in the White House to surface a submarine off the coast of Cuba and paint the second coming of Christ over the island of Cuba using holograms. Which is well within our technology today. The idea was that since there is a large Catholic population in Cuba, they would be so upset by this vision that this would saturate the communication channels, the telephone system in Cuba, long enough for an invasion to take place.
How interesting. I'd never heard of that.
Well, I think that's a classic in psychological warfare, but that kind of manipulation is well understood, and I have personally investigated several apparently genuine UFO cases where there was, in fact, my conclusion, the conclusion of scientists working with me, was that there was, in fact, a manipulation taking place, and that it was not a hoax on the part of the witnesses, but a hoax on the part of somebody much better organized.
What do you think about aliens?
I don't think there are any. At one time, I thought that there were, simply based upon documents that I'd seen while I was attached to the intelligence briefing team, the commander-in-chief of the Pacific Fleet. At that time, and even for many years afterwards, I did not believe that the government would use me in that way. I had devoted my whole life to government service. I had been in the Air Force, I was in the Navy, I was a river patrol boat captain in Vietnam, I had proved myself, I had combat ribbons with the V for Valor. There was no doubt of my loyalty to my country. And maybe that's why it was so easy to use me, because I wouldn't doubt that what I saw was real. But over the years, I've done a lot of research. And what I've discovered is there's no proof existing anywhere that extraterrestrials are real, or that have ever visited this planet, or that they exist anywhere in the universe. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere. There is lots of evidence, tons of it in fact, that there are a group of people collectively known as the Illuminati who want us to believe in some extraterrestrial threat from space so that they can cause a world government, bringing together of all the people to resist that external threat. And the first time that I saw any reference to that, I was reading some papers from the Carnegie Endowment Fund, and there was a record of a speech. It was a dinner for Viscount Nishiki of the Japanese delegation, the Japanese imperial delegation, in 1917. And John Dewey was one of the speakers. And the first sentence out of his mouth, as I was reading this, almost fell out of my chair, because this was in 1917. And he said, the best way to cause all the people of the world to come together in one world government and end war forever would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet. And boy, that just clicked with me, and I knew that this is just another scam. This is the age of deception. There's no doubt about it. And then 8 times during Reagan's administration, he inserted almost the exact same phrase into 8 of his speeches. And it's a scam. That's what I can tell you. What they call UFOs, these craft that fly around the sky, are real. But they're not piloted by some little green guy from some other planet. They're owned and operated by the United States of America for one, the Soviet Union for another, probably Great Britain, Canada. I think the first really operable ones were probably manufactured in Western Canada, in the wilderness, in a place especially built to create those machines, like we created the Manhattan Project, and the same kind of secrecy surrounded it. So the technology is real. It's been kept secret, and it's been used to promote this concept that there's an alien threat to this earth. The cattle mutilations I've discovered in my research are nothing more than what's left after the government does its secret tests on the low-level radiation leakage from its atomic weapons assembly plants and atomic power plants. It's a low-level radiation monitoring project. And if you look at what's missing in the cattle, you'll see that it's just as clear as day. They take the lips, they take the tongue, they take a 6-inch patch of skin, they core out the rectum, the colon area, where those kinds of things would collect that they pass through the digestive system. On female cows, they take the udder to check for low-level radiation in the milk. This is being passed to the calves. And these are all grazing animals. that graze on the grass that where the radiation falls when it falls from the air. And it's just an incredible deception. And I'm just amazed that people have fallen for it in the manner that they have in the absence of any proof whatsoever. I mean, they cite hearsay as proof.
Well, what about all of the alien abductions?
They're not abductions. They're the results of a tremendously successful and very sophisticated mind control operation, all of which has been in development. Well, they started working on those kinds of things since before World War II. But they have perfected them. On my website, I have a patent of a machine that can read your brainwaves, can recombine them in a computer and send them back to you and make you think things happened that never happened. I mean, you can't get a patent for something like that unless it really works. You have to prove it to the patent office. It works. A patent was issued. And this is just one of the things that snuck by them that hasn't. Because when people invent things like this, they're sucked up by the government immediately, and then they're put behind the veil of national security and classified, and then nobody knows about them. But every once in a while, something sneaks by them. And when you do these searches in the patent office, and in the trademark office, and in the copyright office, you come up with some real gems once in a while, and that was one. Also, the congressional investigations into the intelligence community has revealed the existence of these programs, and there's no secret about it. It's documented. Project Artichoke, Project MK Ultra, MK Naomi. I could go on and on and on all day long. And if you had the time in your movie, we could lay out all the documentation, which is official government documentation, and prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's true. But that's what it is. It's not extraterrestrials coming down. The human body cannot pass through walls and roofs or through windows that are closed. This is all the product of the imagination and people's willingness to believe something because they want it to be true. I don't know why they would want it to be true. You see, because if it were true, these are not friendly aliens. They're doing some terrible things to people. If I were to kidnap somebody, pass them up through the roof, and take them somewhere, and perform operations on them, and take samples of semen and ova from their, reproductive organs, and plant thoughts in their mind, and all this kind of stuff, and then bring them back, guess where I'd be right now? In prison. It's kidnapping. It's criminal. It's a terrible thing. So there's a morbid sense about all this too, as if people want to be hurt for some reason. I don't understand that. But that certainly is something that somebody needs to look at. Why do people feel that this needs to be real? What in them says, I want to be abducted and abused and kidnapped and raped and all of this stuff against my will? Because they seem to take some kind of satisfaction that this is happening. And nobody's talking about the fact that this is a terrible thing to happen. If I were to do that to you, you wouldn't be too happy, would you? But somehow it's okay if an alien does it? I don't think so. It's all bullshit. It's a lie.
The strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now, at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there in two.
So again, we have to put all these things together. You have to piece a lot of this together when you see a lot of these narratives out there. Now, am I saying it's definitely going to occur? Of course, I'm not saying it's definitely going to occur. I'm telling you what I'm seeing. That's what people come to my channel for. We're all like-minded. We're all seeing stuff. And it's good to talk about these things because we know that when they make things trend, when it's in the news, that's the first thing you have to understand. It's there for a reason, right? So if all these biblical stories are out there, if they're, pretty much gaslighting Christians with the cicada story. We have politicians talking about the earthquakes being a sign from God. We have the liberal politicians rolling their eyes, mocking Christians who are saying that, which is making Christians even angrier. We have the red heifer story, which has been circulating for a few years, that finally even the temple institution is telling us that they may have found the Cohen, the priest, to perform the actual red heifer sacrifice. So Christians are primed for the picking right now because they're weakened. They're exhausted, which again is a tactic in warfare is to exhaust your enemy. Okay? We know a lot of Christians are exhausted. You could read the comments on my videos of how many people ask and say they want to be out of here. I see other videos. I see the same, community of Christians who are in other videos. They want out. They're begging to get out. And I'm not somebody who fears death. I'm also not somebody who looks at God putting us here for no reason whatsoever other than to beg to leave. I don't think God put me here for that purpose. If it's time to go, if anything happens, the trumpets sound, that's wonderful news because I know I'm saved through the blood of Christ and I know my faith and how deep my faith runs. But I also worry about Christians being duped because I know the devil. I know him because I watch what these people do. And I know what the Bible tells us about deceit, deception, and the devil being a liar. And I could tell that Christians are prime. They have been getting set up. They've been getting baited with MAGA. They've been getting baited with Trump. They've been getting baited with false preachers who are promising them, showing them all these things that are getting really just gaslighting Christians into very much just anger, right? The trans move, all this stuff is getting them so worked up. And I understand why. I'm a Christian, so I don't let it work me up because I understand what they're trying to do to me. When you understand somebody's trying to manipulate you and you're self-aware, then you pull yourself out and you go, oh, I see what they're trying to do. Okay. Yeah, keep thinking you're manipulating me. Keep thinking you're working me. And I'll just watch and see what your plans are now that I realize that you're doing this on purpose. You're deliberately trying to do these things. So we have Simpsons programming with Raptures. We have obviously government patents with Bluebeam. There's a lot of things that are going on at once. And this has all the potential. All the potentials for some type of simulation to actually occur. Now, again, I don't want to make a prediction because I don't know. I'm not in the CIA. I don't know. I'm not a prophet. I don't have dreams of these things and then come on here and claim I'm a prophet, then be completely wrong about it, then change the date and say that this is going to occur. No, I'm telling you what I'm seeing. And I tell people out there every day, be very suspicious of what they talk about and what they make trend. Rapture's trending. Earthquake's trending, right? The cicada story's trending. The earthquake stuff is trending. Politicians are gaslighting you about biblical events that God is coming. Right? The Christians are running around putting up rapture signs, making everybody kind of roll their eyes at it. But Christians would be the ones in a thing like this, a simulation like this, to be deceived. So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, stay prayed up, because at the very least, we know spiritual warfare is going to be occurring during this event. And what makes me most suspicious is they want everybody looking up. And when you think about those glasses they want you to wear, that you would go to a movie, right? What would happen when you wear the 3D glasses at a movie? Go to the movie, everything on the screen suddenly is right in front of your face, right? Everyone's like, oh, wow, this is crazy, right? And somehow nobody correlates why people are wearing 3D glasses, okay, when they're looking up at the sun. They think to themselves, oh, it's just blocking out anything that could be dangerous to my eyes. Maybe you're being set up for something that you're not even going to see with your own eyes. You're going to see through manipulated lenses. I thank everybody for being here. I wonder what you all think about it, so let me know in the comment section below. God bless all of you as always and your families.